Hello, I'm Alex Puiu, and together with my colleague Theo, we will be your hosts to the webinar on the topic on how to secure the future of your data-driven business. A couple of words about us and who we are. One second, I see we have a technical problem. Mute.
Okay, I was muted. Yes, thank you, Alex. Yes, I'm Theodore. It's nice to meet you all. Well, more about me. I've been working with computers for a long time. I've discovered throughout my career that I enjoy most working with data. I also like inspiring and empowering people and teams. Throughout my career, I've worked for big companies, multinationals, but also for small companies, local, in various industries, retail, IT, gaming. My current role fits me perfectly as a consultant. I feel that I can help other companies share my experiences and basically show people what to do and what not to do, because we've all made mistakes, and experience is very important. Alex?
Yeah, thank you, Theo. Hello, I am Alex Puiu, and first of all, it's nice to meet you all. I am currently a BI data architect at Mindit. About me, I am passionate about everything technical, and I love being part of the creating and demanding process of development, whether we talk about business intelligence or about applications development. I've been working around data for my whole career, actually. And the more I interacted with it, the more I started to understand its impact from a developer point of view, but also from a business point of view. And after all this time, I can honestly say that leveraging data is not only about improving the performance of your business, but rather reinventing the way you lead and grow your business. This being said, I think we can start with our presentation.
Yep. Let's start with looking at the landscape, the current landscape of how data is used right now. Next slide, please. So it's obvious that data is all around us. It's no surprise that everything we do day by day generates in some way, shape, or form data. We have data coming from traditional business applications like CRMs, ERPs, etc. We have the web and the social media daily pumping huge amounts of data into the web. We have the Internet of Things. We have wearables, smartwatches, fitness trackers. We have smart homes, lights, cameras, humidity sensors. We have the industrial landscape using data, collecting data from various sensors and devices like temperature, flow, pressure, whatnot. What is interesting is that only a small part of this data ends up being analyzed, and even a smaller part actually gets stored. This means that a lot of companies are not ready to cope with the volume of data and the complexities of analyzing data. They're not data-driven yet. But what does it mean to be data-driven? Data-driven decision-making is defined as using facts, metrics, and data to guide business decisions that align with the company's goals, objectives, and initiatives. When organizations realize the full value of their data, that means everyone, whether you're a business analyst, sales manager, human resource specialist, it doesn't matter. Everyone is empowered to make better decisions with data every day. However, this is not achieved by simply choosing the appropriate analytics technology. You don't just buy an appliance and plug it in. Your organization needs to make data-driven decisions the norm. Next slide, please. Creating a culture that encourages critical thinking and curiosity, where people at every level have conversations that start with data and they develop their data skills through practice and application. Foundationally, this requires a self-service model where people can access the data they need, balanced, of course, with security and governance. It also requires proficiency, creating and training a development opportunities for your employees to learn data skills. And finally, having executive advocacy inside the company. And the community that supports and makes data-driven decisions will encourage others to do the same. Next slide, please. Here are some interesting facts. Wants versus reality. We want to be data-driven, but the reality shows us that this is quite hard to achieve. For instance, New Vantage partners reported that 98.6% of executives indicate that their organization aspires to be a data-driven culture, while only a 32% report having success. Another interesting fact, a 2018 study by the International Data Corporation noted that organizations have invested trillions of dollars, 1.3 trillions of dollars, to modernize their businesses, digital transformation initiatives, but only 70% of these initiatives, 70% of these initiatives fail because they prioritize technology investments without building a data culture that supports it. We also want to talk a bit about the fact that in pursuit to be data-driven, many enterprises are developing their own internal core capabilities, teams, and processes. Tableau, for instance, recommends 3 core capabilities as data proficiency, analytics agility, and community-driven. We like to think of this as storytelling with data. It's all about finding the sweet spot between data, visuals, and a narrative that makes it easy to communicate your findings. You might rely on a team to do this, but in the end, to drive any change, you need to convince people.
And that is very true indeed, Theo. And as you said, data plays a very important role in our lives, and we need to be aware of it now, I think, more than ever. According to market studies, a study ran by Microsoft, by 2030, there will be more than 50 billion devices connected, and these devices will be producing about 95% of the data created in the last 2 years. That is a huge amount and of data we are talking about, and this data will be generated from health and lifestyle applications and devices to marketing and advertisement profiling. Besides devices themselves, data is, as mentioned, produced by applications. In the next 4 years, it's predicted that around 500 million new applications will be created, producing a huge amount of data. But the downside is that out of this data, only about 27% of it will be analyzed. That means that almost 3/4 of data will not be taken advantage of. And now, why take advantage of the data? So why use the data? Now, that's a loss for many people, and it means that businesses are not taking advantage of the endless possibilities of improving their performance. From having close to real-time feeds, instant performance KPIs, predictability, trend detection, and forecasting, these businesses are missing on the tools and features that are right there for them. And that leads to a decrease in possible productivity, with almost 1.4 billion first-line workers missing the essential tools to bring the most value out of their work. Moreover, providing the right tools to the people leads to a better engagement in the business development. And this allows people to become more autonomous and more results driven, as they can quickly notice and the performance of their actions and be proactive and add their input to the decision makers and tweak their work to get the best performance of it. And from there, it's all natural to have a more organic business development with more people working together to accomplish the same goal. And I think one of the biggest industries that take and should take advantage of business intelligence is the retail industry. BI has come a long way in the last decades, and retail industry is one that can take so much advantage of being driven by data. With more than 3 times growth of e-commerce in the past decade, retail industry has changed a lot to what it means right now. The advertisement, the target public reach, everything is changing the retail industry and how business perform and grow, from manual aggregations presented in more structured or informal ways. The need to understand the business was there from the beginning. And Excel has been around for almost 40 years, and I think all of us have worked with an Excel and an Excel report at least once. And for many cases, it can provide the necessary means to analyze performance and provide an overall picture to a business if done properly. If not, it becomes many times a tedious work involving manual work or tweaks, raw data exchange between departments, leading to a lack of performance and missing valuable input from people involved in the process. Here comes in the picture self-service BI. This can be considered an elevated reporting feature, empowering business users to have a quicker look at the business performance. Tools like Power BI took many features available in Excel and brought them to a wider audience without the need for specific technical technical knowledge like Visual Basic. It can be used the same as Excel, with plain files used as data source, with users being required to do the work. But there is where the business intelligence component comes in handy. And because of that, you can have a team dedicated to understanding and maintaining the structure of your data closely connected to business stakeholders. And of course, being driven by their input, they can provide all the necessary means to end users to create their own specific reports. And the impact, they only need to choose the way they want to look at the data. And such tools provide a much bigger impact when we are looking at the data in a more dynamic way, being more connected to it and understanding it on lower levels rather than sending files all around. And that's just by a matter of clicks. All that along the reports that can be created by the BI team can provide the most necessary means and even more features to the business that can change the way they discuss, the way they look at their performance or at the performance of their business. And either we talk about sales by source and timeline, or actual sales versus target sales, to promotion breakdowns. Every user can access this data in a matter of milliseconds instead of remodel and really linking the data every time something needs to change. And I think it's pretty obvious that this also provides a much better scalability for this kind of architecture. And this is just a scenario and an industry that can take advantage of business intelligence. It's more like tools that are used, and every business is free to pick the tools that they want and that make more sense for them and for technological stack. Another industry that can take advantage of the business intelligence is the gaming industry.
Thank you, Alex. Very, very true. Tools and teams and processes are very important, and they can be reused across industries. Same tools, different metrics, really. I used to work for a game company on several very different projects, uh, especially very different apart from the very different from the retail industry, at least. Even though the gaming industry is something else, doesn't mean we can't reuse the tools and the skill sets that I mentioned, that Alex mentioned earlier. Of course, you need business users to set the goals and translate the requirements. Compared to the previous case study, this will be much simpler, but maybe harder for you to relate to. So I'm trying to keep it simple intentionally. Let's look at a project that I worked for, the BI for the QA department. Sorry, Alex, can you go back a bit? I wanted to, before we dive into looking at data, I want to mention something about the QA department. This QA department was servicing all the game teams within various game studios. The QA department had tight deadlines around opening and closing bugs. We've had hundreds of QA analysts for each game team doing manual testing. We've had scripted automated testing as well. We had like a server farm with hundreds of consoles in a very cold room that ran all day long scripted tests. There was also a concept called risk-based testing. I won't go into details. Suffice to say that we didn't have enough resources, manpower, compute power to test everything. So data, game telemetry, client feedback, past QA experiences, data was crucial in telling us how to focus our resources, what to test in the limited time we had. And some of the KPIs, and I'll focus on just two very important KPIs for the QA department, were the count of bugs, or bug count for short, and the average bug life. This was very important to the QA department in knowing how many bugs are opened, how bugs are closed, the distribution of bugs across platforms like the Xbox, the PS4, the PC, the severity of the bugs, which were high, low, or medium. So this was very crucial for the QA department in allocating resources. So you would know you need to allocate more resources to, I don't know, the Xbox, because usually spawns more bugs. You also could look at the average bug life and set this as a KPI and an indicator. This shouldn't really be the number, the worst the department performed. So you need to keep this number in check at all times as a QA department. You can also look at the trend in the slide here. Yeah, the average bug life by quarter, you can see it going down as the game reaches its release life cycle. We can see that maybe one studio had a problem that the other studio did not. So one studio did things better than the other. There's a lot of interesting things that data can tell us about this. Another interesting thing that we used to look at is game area. You also want to allocate resources on the game areas that matter. that really matter for you. For instance, we can see it in this example right here that um, the main menu or the Quest Explorer are game areas with not so many bugs. Um, Gameplay map C, for instance, is very important and has lots of bugs and also a high average bug life. But also looking there, you can see that the main menu has a bigger average bug life. So somehow we're not closing bugs sufficiently fast enough over there. So for the QA management team, these things are all important um, in managing the QA department overall. Other interesting things that I don't have slides for, but I can mention is, for instance, bug history was another extension of this bug tracking platform. We, well, there can be, we used it to do a case study and study status transitions. How much does a bug stay in the open state before it's actually picked up by a QA analyst, before it's moved to in progress? How much time is the real average bug life? The in progress time should actually be the real one. Another extension where we used machine learning algorithms was to correlate game commits, so code commits that were done on the code base by the game team, to correlate that with um, predicting bugs, basically. So we wanted to predict how many bugs would occur when a developer would commit his code in the code base. Well, that was very difficult to do, especially if the game teams themselves don't adhere to certain protocols when committing code. Before we could trust the data, we needed to change how teams operate. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you,
That's
Theo. And uh, I now understand better how why sometimes some of our favorite games are being delayed, and I really think that data can really help avoiding these situations. And speaking of machine learning, what rhymes with BI better than AI, right? And that's the main thing to understand about artificial intelligence. It's not competing or trying to replace business intelligence, but rather complement and enhance its capabilities. One of the reasons for the need of business intelligence is the need to take action and to improve. And if some trust their gut to do it, their chances are considerably lower to succeed, as most of the times there are many variables and external factors that are not taken in consideration. Not augmented BI takes care of some of these external factors and provides a more stable picture for the data, but to be able to predict and take actions based on the data, one doesn't simply look at the dashboard. It requires experience in the first place and a high capability of processing all the information. And humans are quite good at it, but also we are more prone to disregarding some information. And here, artificial intelligence comes in handy as it can handle a huge amount of information and take in consideration many more factors based on the data generated by the business intelligence solution. From seasonality, weather impact, restrictions, social data, and more, AI can add these external factors to enhance the data and process it in order to provide more data on its own based based on the output of the processing. And moreover, by processing more and more data, it can predict the data better and it can take in account external factors in a more accurate manner and of course bringing much better results to the business. But that's all about the future, and to get there it's about building the future. So
yeah,
where can we start to
very true.
build?
Very true. Where can you start? This is kind of a list, some tips and tricks for you guys. How can you start in the basically take advantage of what we just discussed. Um, this is a process, for instance, um, and one way to think of it is that this process is basic, basically something we want to follow or something that expresses reality. Um, we can start from guarding against your biases. So much of the mental work we do is unconscious, which makes it difficult to verify the logic we use when we make a decision. We can even be guilty of seeing the data we wish was there instead of what's really in front of us. This can be one of the ways a good team can help. Running your decisions by a competent party who doesn't share or even know your biases is an invaluable step. By eliminating bias, you open yourself up to discovering more opportunities, getting rid of preconceived notions, and really studying the data can alert you to insights that can truly change your bottom line. You also need to define objectives to get the most out of your data. Teams. Companies should define their objectives before beginning their analysis. Set a strategy that applies to your business. Avoid riding any hype train, and define clear KPIs for you. Um, gather data. Uh, Gathering data is as crucial as asking the right questions or setting the right goals. For smaller businesses or startups, data collection should begin day one. There's one quote from Jack Dorsey, the co-creator and founder of Twitter, who shared this learning with Stanford. Um, I'm quoting him now. For the first 2 years of Twitter's life, we were flying blind. We were basing everything on intuition instead of having a good balance between intuition and data. So the first thing he did was he started having a strong discipline to log everything and measure everything. You need to prepare for the tidal waves of data you will be collecting. Well, then analyze and understand. This may seem obvious, but we need to mention it. After setting the frame of your goals and have the data collection in place, you need to read through it to extract meaningful insights. Then you need to find the data needed to answer the questions you have. Once your strategy and goals are set, you will then need to find the questions in need of an answer so that you reach those goals. Among the data you have gathered, try to focus on your ideal data that will help you answer your questions. Of course, another important thing to mention, don't be afraid to revisit and reevaluate. Our brains often leap to conclusions and are reluctant to consider alternatives. We are particularly bad at revisiting our first assessments, but do not be afraid to step back and to rethink your decisions. Verifying data and ensuring you are tracking the right metrics can help you. And always continue to evolve your data-driven business decisions. This is often overlooked, but it's incredibly important nonetheless. You should never stop re-examining, analyzing, and questioning your decisions. In our hyper-connected digital age, we have more access to data than ever before. To extract real value from this wealth of insights, it's vital to continually refresh and evolve your business goals based on the landscape that's moving around you, really. Um, Also important, very important, is a team of specialists with predefined roles. Um, Looking at an example of a successful BI team, we can see the different roles and responsibilities. Some overlap exists, but each role is key. You have the data analysts that deliver value to businesses by having a deep relationship with their data. They are focused on efficiently and regularly delivering results based on knowing their data and knowing it well, perhaps better than anyone else. They understand that understanding the context of your data gives you the power to answer crucial questions about your organization. The data engineer, the engineer plays a critical role in tying business and data preparation processes together. They're somewhat unique skill set, a combination of technical skills and data know-how, empower their more business-focused colleagues by helping them streamline and automate data-related processes. The data architect decides how data and tools that access it will be configured, integrated, scaled, and governed across different organizations. Their broad interests mean they have a direct and important stake in any business project that uses data owned or touched by IT. Analytics initiatives need the buy-in of data architects to succeed, since they typically both govern and control the data that analysts and other stakeholders will use in these projects. Um, Analytics executives or leaders, or as I like to call them, champions. You need these champions, and they need to understand the importance of data in delivering business value. And while they may not directly use data preparation tools themselves, they recognize and value tools that will make their organization smarter, faster, and more efficient. These leaders must quickly and regularly demonstrate quantifiable value. At the end of the day, the efforts of a data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, or architect are all meant to fuel insights for our champion. It is these insights that help to determine business strategy and future growth of the organizations. In today's data-driven world, they are essential. The more insights the leader has, the better armed they will be to make the right decisions. Regardless, your organization needs to make data-driven decision-making the norm, creating a culture that encourages critical thinking and curiosity. It's very important. The culture, I can't stress this enough. Um, you can see here one example is the Business Intelligence Maturity Model by the Data Warehouse Institute, which is a known authority in the BI world. They did this maturity model some years ago, but it still applies today. And I remember working for a company in the past where we used to ask ourselves, where are we? We were thinking, oh, we're surely an adult or a sage, but the more we were asking questions, the more we found out we were actually in the earlier stages. And it's very hard to cross, for instance, from stage 2 to stage 3. This is called the gulf. From spread marts, like using Excel spreadsheets, like Alex mentioned earlier, to data marts or data warehouses. Then there's another very big crossing between data warehouses to using enterprise data warehouses. That's another big gap called the chasm. This is a very interesting aspect to look and ask yourself where you are, and to cross these two big, the gulf and the chasm, you need a strong support, and you need to build the culture. You need a strong team and good tools. But again, culture is very important.
Indeed. And I think no matter what tools and technologies you use, you cannot make it successful without the culture and without the authentic curiosity of the human to understand and to know more.
True.
This was it. Let's call it like that. The presentation, and now because we tried to cover a lot of concepts and to present a lot of information, um, we also have some time for some questions and hopefully some answers, or at least some guidance. So please feel free to use the Q&A section in Zoom, as I've seen already. Some have used to ask us how we can explain more of these concepts. And I see we have a question. From Laurencio, how difficult is to migrate or upgrade a legacy data warehouse solution to a self-service BI? And what are the steps? Well, this is a very interesting question. The difficultness of upgrading a legacy solution or legacy architecture depends on a lot of factors. First of all, we are talking about the volume of data. That's one important factor because you need to choose um, the proper technologies in order to scale, to have the scalability and to have the enough power to conquer the data and extract the most insightful information from it. Another factor would be how big your data warehouse solution is at that moment when you want to upgrade, and how complex it is. It can take from months to years. So 10, 12 months for a small scale data warehouse solution to years of development and improving, because it's not only rebuilding what you had before, but it's always about revisiting why you took these decisions before and how you can take better decision to improve, because it's not only about upgrading to a newer technology, but rather to reinvent the way you look at the data.
Yes, I think it's very difficult to say exactly how much investment you would need to make without looking at the data first. But you obviously need to change the way you are thinking, because in the past, the traditional legacy data warehouse solutions were built for static reporting or predefined reports, paginated reports maybe. And really empowering self-service BI, you need a whole different data model. You don't just throw away your data. No, of course not. You keep your data, but you model it differently. You model it for self-service BI. Well, steps. You need an architect to look over your solution and tell you really what steps you need to make. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. The next one. When does it make sense to use IT developed standard reports versus self-service BI?
I think it's more important for operational reporting, where you have some predefined or very strict KPIs. For instance, in my previous example that I mentioned, the average bug life, that was basically the formula, and the reports were built by IT, by our team. They were not encouraged to be self-service because people would have them projected on screens in rooms or on floors, and people were just looking at the counter if it goes up or down. I think it makes sense when the KPIs are really sensitive for the organization and for management. It makes sense to use standard reporting instead of self-service BI. So self-service BI encourages exploration, encourages this curiosity and answering questions you might not even know you had in the past.
Indeed. And related to that, we have another question. As culture is crucial, how do you start to create this culture? Well, it's a circular process. It comes from setting your objectives in the first place. What do you want to see and what do you want to assess in terms of performance and in terms of intelligence of your business? Then it comes to leading people around these objectives and training them to be curious about how data drives and leads to these objectives. And this will, in the end, create other leaders that will inflict this mindset, being driven by the KPIs, being driven by the data you collect, the data you generate, and these will inflict next to other users and so on. And these are the main steps and the most crucial steps to inflict this mindset to to
Yeah.
the business.
Yes, and like Alex saying, you need to inflict this mindset to the business. I think from the very beginning, you need a data governance team. You need the buy-in of executives within the company. You need sponsors, basically. You need to chase people. You need to have meetings and discuss with various people within the organization and build this data governance team. These will be your sponsors. These will be the key people, the drivers of changing the culture within the company. Once you have the buy-in of these executives, then everything will come in place, streamlined down to the other people in the company. But first, you need the buy-in of executives within the company, and you need to regularly. I mean, it's just not a meeting, one meeting that you have, and we meet, we say, okay, let's be data-driven, and we go back doing what we did before. We need to regular meetings, recurrent meetings. This data governance team needs to be long-lived. It needs to meet on a regular basis. It needs to set goals, like Alex was saying earlier, clear, measurable goals, and needs to reassess each time. I hope that answers your question. It's difficult to do, and you need sponsors within the company. You need your champions.
And perseverance.
Oh yeah, and perseverance. People will be reluctant to change. A lot of people will be reluctant to change.
Yeah. We have another question. Power BI, Tableau, or ClickView? Which one should I choose and why? The famous question, which technology to use? Um, Honestly, I don't think there's a recipe for success. It pretty much depends on what technology you are using already. Whether you are using Microsoft Stack for your data warehouse, it makes the more sense to use Power BI because it's right there from the same family of tools, and it will integrate much better with the other technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's
and yeah, Theo.
yeah. No, I was trying to also say that you don't need to go Microsoft all the way if you're invested in Microsoft Stack. I can give you an example of where they were invested Microsoft fully up to the front end dashboard building tool, which they chose as Tableau. Because the buy-in, the champion was in the company was using Tableau and was a fan. And of course, he wanted, well, there are pros and cons to these tools, but they're very similar. They all serve, in the grand scheme of things, the same empowering the self-service BI model. Um, they have their differences. You can say Tableau has much prettier visualizations, where Power BI is more accessible and least expensive. Um, there are pros and cons, and your data governance team needs to make some decisions.
Yeah.
But yeah, pick and choose tools. The tools will. I think the team is more important than the culture than the tools.
And to what the team is comfortable, as you said, if there are data execs that are comfortable with a particular tool, they will be much prone to adopt that tool and to try to improve the business intelligence solution using these tools. Hope we managed to provide a
Yep.
good answer to to this question.
There's another
Also,
interesting.
there's not a clear one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one about curious what other industries you guys believe would majorly benefit from being data driven. What would be the differences in BI approach compared to what was covered here, retail gaming? Okay, that's that's a good question.
Can we answer with another question? What industries would not
yeah,
benefit from being data driven?
yeah, exactly. All industries can benefit from being data driven. I think the most behind industries are governments. I think governments are really behind being data driven. A lot of decisions are based on gut feeling or um, along party lines, so to speak, political, not really based on data. I think I would like to see more governments taking their decisions based on data. But yeah, I like Alex is saying, what industry could not benefit from data, really? I think we're seeing more and more data being used, really, from in all industries.
That's of course because more and more people get to understand the value that data brings to their business, and they understand that they've been collecting data since day one, many of them, and they understand that they do not leverage this.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking resources, but the advantages and the outcome is not
Yeah,
there to justify it, and
yeah.
they understand how they can
And
use it.
another side question was what would be the difference in BI approaches compared to what was covered, in our case studies? I don't think there's a huge difference. I mean, you can maybe change your data collection strategy depending on the volume or variety of data. You might use some tools in one industry and other tools in another to collect your data. I think in the end, visualizing it, it's really reusing the same tools and skill set. Um, things will be different, true, but not a lot.
Hope hope that was good enough for an answer. We have uh, another question, two more questions. Tips for growing AI machine learning expertise in your company so that you can efficiently use it with your existing BI platform. Well, artificial intelligence is pretty new to the higher levels of the industry, let's call it like that. Even though the first steps towards this technology were done many years ago, AI is now coming to a more accessible and mature level. And if until now it was all about knowing all the mathematical algorithms and requiring a lot of proficient development skills to start to implement these algorithms and use the technology in your advantage. Right now, it's more like subscribing to services and following some guidelines. It starts to become like that, and it's much accessible to do it even without being a proficient data scientist. But
I think,
for
yeah,
for growing this expertise, you would start with data scientists, people that are trained and are focused on understanding and evolving the data.
yeah, very true, Alex. This was what I wanted to add to what you said, and it's difficult to breed these people. You can it's hard to breed them in-house. I think most of the time you need to reach outside and either hire these people with these skills or find a provider, consultant that will work with you and provide you with these skills. And once you have these people, you have a few. What I noticed in the past, in one of my past jobs, they had regular meetups, the data scientists or data analysts um, inside the company. They had regular meetings with themselves, shared their experiences and their knowledge, and presented projects they worked on. They were encouraged to share, to create a community that shared and helped grow this expertise within the company. So whether you're hiring or you're buying, collaborating with a company that can do this for you, you need to encourage a community-driven approach to grow this expertise.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so another question is, as data volume is getting bigger and bigger, what is the best approach to find the right questions? Oh, well, data volume, it's getting bigger and bigger, and it really depends on whether it's getting bigger in terms of you start collecting more data and try to enhance the current model with additional information from the data you are generating through your business, and or whether it's the data that was currently generated until now is much more denser.
I think, yeah, I think experimenting is key here, really.
Yeah,
Like going back to my risk-based testing example, you need to make some, you need to take some decisions and take some risks and experiment, really. And you need to encourage people to experiment. Actually, I remember we had a department in one of my previous jobs. What they did was experiment, and that's what they did. The whole department, I think 5 people or so, were doing experiments on data. They didn't have really a clear-cut goal. They just played with data and they would see what they could achieve. Yeah, but you
yeah,
need to collect that data. You need to store it, even though you won't use it immediately.
yeah. And once you have the data, and once you start experimenting, you start to bring questions to the table and see, okay, how can I use this data? What value does this bring to me, and how can I take advantage of it? And from here, the questions flow naturally to improving your model. Thank you for the question. And the last one.
We have one more question.
Yeah. So if
There's no data warehouse BI in place. What's the timeline needed with the current technologies to put in place a solution, assuming, let's say, we have data in 5 different platforms? Timeline. Timeline is very difficult to give the timeline because you don't know the volume of data or the structure of data or the goals, the metrics you want to track and plot. Let's say you do. Let's say you know the volume and the metrics. I would say it's not something that you can deliver in a month's worth of time. I think you need to properly set those goals. You need to make decisions based on technologies. You need to talk to business users. What do they need? How do they operate? How would you help them? I think it's a months-long project. Well, that will spawn years, because it's an ongoing project. BI is not just something you build. Oh, I just build my BI project. It takes 6 months, deliver it, and end of story. I have my dashboard. I'll be working with that dashboard forever from now on. No, business requirements always change. And the team, the processes in place need to be um, thought out by the architects in such a way that they'll be easy to change, easy to come in and then plug in a new KPI, plug in a new system, a new platform that you get data from. Um, yeah, it's an ongoing process. You need a support, basically, a team that will forever be a part of your organization. It's a months long process, definitely.
And for sure you need expertise. The better expertise you have for the people in charge of putting such a system in place, the better you'd see the results, and you would be able to skip or overcome some steps that would rather take you behind from starting point. Because expertise also means that someone has been through this process before, once or more, and that person knows some tricks, some tips, what to do, what not to do, and how to redirect the path
Mm,
of building such a
yeah.
system.
And I want to add one more thing here, and then let's, because you mentioned five different platforms, right? But do you want all data from those platforms? I mean, you need to set your goals and your questions first. Going back to my example of bugs, for instance, if you just want to know the count of bugs in the average bug life, you can just take an extract, a snapshot of all the open issues in Jira, for instance, put them in a data warehouse and plot them in a graph, and it will show you that. If you want to answer questions like I mentioned earlier, you want to look at state transitions and the duration between state transitions, and there's a whole different amount of volume of data that you need to bring in. You need to scan logs, you need to look for those state transitions and ingest a whole different volume of data over there to answer those questions.
Yep. So uh, a living process and never-ending process of development. This was the last question, and I think we already passed our 45 minutes initial timeline. But we would like to thank you all very much for staying until the end, and really hope you enjoyed this experience together with us. And
Yeah.
we look forward to another one in the future. And please, if you'd like to, uh, leave us your feedback, as it really helps us to improve and to deliver better experience
Yep. Thank
for
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And we enjoyed the sharing.
For
And
sure.
yeah, we would like to do that again.
Yeah. Thank you again, and have a nice evening.